Welcome to the SportsBiz Unwrapped podcast. This is the third episode. My name is Javan Ekhalie. I'm also a co-host together with Richie Jr. Thank you so much for the good feedback and the subscriptions we've been getting on YouTube. Continue subscribing if you're watching this video. Also follow us and listen to us. Give us a 5-star rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the other podcast platforms. So today, our topic will be about the business of transfer in sports. It's actually a really big talking point in sports business because in every single sport, transfers always happen. And we're joined with our returning guest, one of the most prolific champions of sports business and sports commercialization in Kenya, who's also the CEO and founder of SportsBiz Ltd, Mr. Ekhalie. Thank you so much for being here with us. So we'll get going with this episode. Stay tuned. So the first thing we'd like to know is what's a player transfer in a sporting perspective?
Thank you very much for welcoming me back again in this wonderful show, the SportsBiz Ltd podcast. And I'm very delighted with this topic of player transfer because we realize that, especially in the football industry, the player transfer is actually now widely being discussed because players are moving from one club to the others are being recruited from academies, others are coming from grassroots clubs, being taken to other major clubs. So it's a good topic at the right time. And just to go back to your question, player transfer is a moment when a player moves from one club or one institution to another institution, mostly on a contract. So the key word here is a contract. When you're talking about a player transfer, there has to be a contract involved. When there's no contract, then it becomes very hard to call it a player transfer.
Okay. That's at least a very good insight about what a player transfer is. So as we've learned, contracts are essentially in the transfer business. A contract has to be involved for a player to move from one team to another team.
Yeah, and I talked about contract because a contract has so many perspectives you look at it when you're talking about a contract. Because when you're talking about a contract, you're talking about the duration that the player is going to take, the fees, the sign-on fees, and how much the player is going to earn, and the bonuses. So actually the contract has all that it takes for this contract to be signed by both the player, the receiving club, and the selling club. So it's very important to take note that contract is very important in the transfer of player.
So who are the main players?
Okay, in the player transfer industry, which is a multi-billion industry, actually there are so many players who are involved, but I just discuss about a few. One and most important is the selling club, where the player is coming from. That is key because you have to negotiate with that club for that club to accept to sell you the player. And in this case, I'm talking about a player who still has a contract with the club. So one of the key players is the selling club, who now the buyer will come and negotiate with and come and reach for that agreement that he wants to sell the player to another club.
Yeah.
The other key player will be the buying club, because the buying club will initiate and want to negotiate with the selling club about the player. So those two are very key. And then the third player will be the key. That is key actually is the player himself, because the player must want to move or to transfer from one club to the other. So the player becomes another very key agent. And the player comes hand in hand with an agent because in most developed countries, most players have an agent because the agents know the business of transfer. So a player will come hand in hand with an agent. So we normally look them together. Then we have the league and the governing body that is also a major player because any transfer of a player will involve the league in which he's playing his sports or our sports, and the governing body that is doing that. Like let's say in Kenya, we realize we have for football, for example, we have the FKF, which is the governing body. So it's always important for you before you even initiate a transfer process of a player to find out how the league and the governing body of that country operates. That will help you in understanding how to do or go about it. The other key player will be the sponsor. If there is a sponsor in that league and the broadcaster of that league, because there are usually some rights attached to them. So they also come in very key when you are discussing about the transfer of a player, because some of them have separate contracts with them. So it's usually good to put in mind about the sponsors and also the broadcasters of that league.
That's proper. Yeah. Usually, so many people involved in it. The teams, the players themselves, agents. In fact, we usually hear agents, they even paid so much just to be an agent of a player. And even those agents, agents of different players, and they're really important in sealing those deals, helping Team A and Team B negotiate, make different kind of agreements. So all those players are important, and
in fact, many people think agents are brokers, but they play a key part, because you find in most cases it's the agents who will go out and source out a buyer. After finding out a buyer, they come and sell the idea to the player and start negotiating with the potential buyer. So they might earn a lot of money, but it's because of their effort. And they also know how to negotiate. But there are general rules governing the agents of players, and they always say knowledge is power. So players also need to be knowledgeable. They need to know what percentages they can give their agents. And it depends on how good you are, because if you are a better player, you can call the shots. But if you are not, then the agent can easily call the shots. So it's important to know that agents and players correlate each other very well. I don't think one should cry foul because the other has already taken the share. The only thing, also other thing is that many people underestimate the work of an agent. Once they see the money going to the agent, they think that that's very fair, which is wrong. Because these are professionals who are just doing the work. Yes.
That's important. And another thing I would have wanted to know is how do these sports journalists, especially the ones who are heavily involved in transfers, people like Fabrizio Romano, the ones who get the information fast, like how do they play a part in this whole transfer industry? Because sometimes even they are the ones who announce players even before the team has done that. It's really crazy.
Knowledge is power, as I said earlier, because even before somebody is interested in a player, you need to know more about that player. That's why professional journalists come in. There are those ones who just specialize in talent and movement of players. So they do a lot of analytics. And when they put up that information, their agents are able to mine from that. So I think it's very important to know the chain where the whole process starts. It starts from the journalists who discover the hidden talent of these players and put it out there for the world to know. So it's very important that journalists also be recognized as part of the players in the transfer of talent.
What are the revenue streams linked to transfers?
Okay, there are very many revenue streams linked to transfer of players in all the industries. Perhaps the most important one would be the transfer fees. When a big player is moving to a big club, a lot of money is usually discussed as transfer fees. And we have seen various examples. We saw when Neymar moved to PSG from Barcelona in 2017, almost 222 million pounds exchanged hands. And in Kenyan perspective, that's about 33 billion Kenyan shillings transfer fee. That's big money, and I think that stands as the record now. And followed by Mbappe, also who moved to the same club with approximately about 25 billion Kenyan shillings. So that is a key aspect, the transfer fee. And that is where now the agents come in very strongly, because they usually negotiate that. They put in a bid, and the buying club negotiates. Of course, they have reasons why they give that kind of money. They look at very many aspects of the player, and then it's a matter of willing buyer, willing seller. So the receiving club will negotiate and try to come up with a better deal. So yes, transfer fee is key. It's one serious, very big component of the transfer earning revenue of the whole system. The other aspect is sell-on clause. Sell-on clause basically means when you sign a player that has a contract with another club, there's a sign-on fee. So basically, the club that gave that player to the club that is selling benefits from a sell-on fee. So those are things that we call final print, and many clubs that are buying a player are keen on knowing if there's any sell-on clauses on the contract, so that they are aware that once they give this fee, part of that fee will go to the other club that gave out these other players. So some players have that sell-on clause agreement, others don't. So it's normally good for any buying club to be privy to the details of that kind of transaction. The other revenue stream will be loan deals, because you realize that in the current sporting world, the players are usually given out on loan to other clubs. And once you do that, and a player goes to another club on loan and impresses, we see in many cases other clubs want to buy him from where he's loaned. So these loaning deals also come into play as revenue streams, because when you are buying that player who is on loan, you are actually dealing with two clubs, because the club you are buying from and the original owner of the club was loaned the player. So that's one key area that many people might not be familiar with, that plays a major part. Then we also have training compensation and solidarity payments. In most cases, when you are selling a player to a big club, they'll always go back to the training compensation, and the Solidarity Payment Act actually is infringing the FIFA statutes, whereby 5% of that goes to the developing club that discovered, or the training institute that discovered and trained this talent when the talent was growing up. So that 5% percentage is always considered. And in most cases, it's big money, because if you are talking about 33 billion Kenyan shillings, 5% of that is good money. So if Neymar came from one such institution, you can see there are very many people who are cashing in on that. Yeah, so those are the key areas that we need to consider or to look at when you are talking about the revenue streams to player transfers.
That's amazing. There's so many aspects to look into it. So much money is used to buy those players from teams. There's even recently, a few days ago, there's a player, Hicks, who's from Borussia Dortmund, who's now joined the Premier League. He's made the record for the most expensive player for about 100 million euros. It's just amazing how players are becoming that expensive. And yeah, it's a really good thing. And yeah, many people get to benefit from it and get to see and learn a lot from it too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Why transfer of players big business?
Yeah, actually, transfer of players is one of the biggest business nowadays in the sports world. Uh, because one, a player is viewed as an asset, just like you buy the stock in the stock exchange. You buy low, nurture, and then sell high. Just like I tell you when Safaricom was floated on the Nairobi Stock Exchange, I was among the first people who bought the first shares. I think it was below 5 shillings each. Then after 10 years, I sold tenfold. So you can imagine I made more than 200% profits. So in sports, you can equate that to sports, whereby a player is seen as an asset, whereby you buy low and nurture and then sell high. And that is why you will see many people are investing in the youth. Good talent, you nurture, then you get it actually as cheap as for free. Then you sell at the high. So one is players as an asset, that is very key. Another aspect would be performance, return on investment. Because you have bought this player, you will expect return on investment, making sure that that player produces or performs well, helps the team win trophies, helps the team attract sponsors, help the team attract funds. And when that happens, return on investment is high because when you win trophies, it comes with cash prizes. When you sell merchandise, that is revenue to the club. When you get a higher fan base, they consume most of the product. Yes, so return on investment based on performance becomes key. Another area will be the brand power of a player. If you bring in a star player like Messi or Mbappe, what happens is that he comes in with a brand power. And the brand power can easily change the revenue of a club because you are likely to attract more fans. You are likely to attract bigger sponsors, and financial partners will come on board because they want to be associated with that star player. So yes, the brand power cannot be wished away. Then the other aspect will be market expansion. Many of these star players are loved and world all over the country and all over the world. So once you have such a big star player in your team, you are likely to diversify the fan base of that institution or club. You will see like very many players, star players in the English Premier League football. They have attracted fans from all over the world, including Kenya, Asia, America, and all over the world. So it plays a key part in market expansion for fan base. That also helps in attracting international sponsors to come on board and sponsor various aspects of that.
What's amazing to see how big players are, and a player is a whole brand. It's just so huge. Even players who come from different parts of the world, let's say in Africa, the players who play football in Kenya, with Victor has played abroad. There are so many people who end up being interested in the sport, even look into other sports, let's say basketball, in some places in Europe. People don't know much about basketball, but you see people who've come like Luka Doncic from Slovenia, playing in the NBA, the biggest stage. So yeah, guys start knowing about the sport, and yeah, it brings so much, the sponsors, everything, and those are really interesting facts about that whole idea. Yeah, so what are the risks in the player transfer business?
Yeah, just like any other business, there are risks, just like in any other business in the world. One of the biggest risks in this player transfer business is overpaying. this comes into focus because a player can be bought for a lot of money for the transfer, and then he or she underperforms, or even worse, suffers injuries. So that's a major risk because you cannot call back your money. You have already signed a deal. Once you put the paper on pen, the deal is done. So if that happens, it's a major risk because you will have lost. You'll be forced probably to look for another player and also buy. So the idea of overpaying becomes key. If you paid a very high premium, the risk of a player underperforming probably maybe because he or she has gone into a different territory altogether, or probably this player is used to playing in a team with specific teammates. Then when he goes to or she goes to another club or team, he finds a different semantics together. It becomes very hard to perform. Or worst case, gets an injury on the first or second game. So that's a major risk that people have to contend with. Another risk factor would be short contracts. Once you get a player who has a short contract and you purchase, the player can decide to leave even before you have a good use of him. And if you sign a player and you don't go for a big contract, the player might actually outperform you and set once out of the contract. Because his contract is very short, the amount the club will be paid will be very short. So it's always good for a player to have a longer contract so that even when he wants to go, the person who is buying that player will have to pay you, the selling club, at least good money for that. So that's one risk factor. Another risk factor would be agent fees. Some agents are actually charging a lot of fee, and that eats into the revenue of the club. So agent fees, actually, when you are negotiating with a player, you always have to look at the agent who is doing the deal and try to negotiate the agent fee downwards so that it does not eat into the revenue of the club and the player also. Another risk factor would be the market volatility, because the market can be very, very volatile. Player value can go up or crash, depending on very many things, like a club being relegated. You'll find some players, once a club is relegated, the value of that player dips because maybe he was a striker and that club underperformed in that field. So the volatility of the markets becomes a key risk factor.
As you've heard, there are always challenges. Players underperform a lot. It happens a lot in many sports, football, basketball. You see a player sign, people are so hyped. Oh, we've gotten this player, we've gotten this player. And then after a few games, they start underperforming. So now it's just a complete mess because it's a waste of money. You've paid so much money for this player, expecting so much, and then they underperform, they are injury prone. There are always risks to it. So I think also the people buying should be so careful to check, is this person first of all injury prone, and when are they able to adapt? So there are always challenges when it comes to the transfer business.
And also, I think lack of patience in fans also is a key factor, risk factor, because players sometimes need time to gel into the new team. But you realize that fans of these clubs will always expect immediate performance from players without knowing that the different environment might dictate this player to take time. And also it depends on the technical bench. You can go to a different club, it depends on how the technical bench utilizes you. You find if your head coach used to use this kind of combination. You go to a different club, a different country, you find even the style of play is different. So many factors come into play, and fans don't have time to even consider that. Once you go for 6 months without doing what you expect, they start wishing that the club never spent that money. So yeah, there are very many risk factors, but I guess the industry is able to mitigate that.
So what is an ideal transfer market cycle?
Yeah, an ideal transfer cycle for most players will take very many stages. One and foremost is scouting and targeting. Scouting and targeting are key because you have to find out who you want first. You scout and target. In most serious clubs, they already know who they want because their scouts have been busy during the season. So they scout and target a particular player. So that is very key because they know first of all who they want, and then they target or mark that player. So that is the very first part of it. The second part will be the negotiations. This is where you bring the targeted player on the table, the agent, and you negotiate terms with that player for the ability of him moving from this club to the other club. Once you have talked to the player, you now bring in the club where this player plays or play this trade. So that is important. You have that tripartite meeting, and then you are discussing transfer terms. The third one will be transfer fee payment. Once you have agreed, negotiated, you now do transfer fee payment, which is paid to the club that is selling this player, and some goes to the agent who is negotiating the deal. So that one is very important because unless it's done, no movement of a player. The next one will be registration and branding. You have to register that player in whichever league or country or governing body the player will apply in his trade. Once you do that, then they will start rebranding the player for the new club, including having a shirt, a number, having an identity brand, so that you can start now unveiling that player to the fan base or to the market, so that he can be accepted as a new player in that institution where he's going to play. Then the last one is performance and resale. Performance is now you give the player time to play. If the contract is 2 years, let him finish the 2 years, have an opportunity to renew depending on how he performs and how you like it. If you don't think it's worth renewing the contract, you might opt to sell him or sell her out, or the player also might have the need or the urge to move out, so he might even buy his own contract. So yeah, that's the last part of it, the performance bit. The player goes through the contract period, then now the resale of the player opting to move out of that club. So that actually concludes the cycle of player transfer.
That's a very detailed cycle. I've gotten to learn, and also the listeners and audience have gotten to learn that transfers just don't happen. Scouts are really important. People always are sent out to look for players, to see which specific player we want, how this player is gonna fit into the team, and that's how the process starts. The agents come in, then the player comes in, the team comes in, then they can have an agreement, and depending on how the player performs, now the team can opt to sell the player. Yes, it's a really interesting cycle how the whole transfers go. So what are standout transfers from Kenyan clubs?
Okay, the Kenyan market is still young comparatively, but we're improving, and Kenyan clubs have started realizing the importance of natural talent. And some of the standout sign-outs in Kenya, especially involving Kenyan clubs, I would start with one key one, that one of Stanley Wilson. This is a player who signed from Kariobangi Sharks to AIK Football Club from Sweden. And he signed at a transfer fee of about 25 million Kenyan shillings. That was a very good amount because this is a club that has been struggling financially. So when they got 25 million shillings, it actually boosted their operations. And that could also be reflected in the field as even their performance started to improve. And also it encouraged many other young talents. As we all know, Kariobangi Sharks is one of the clubs in Kenya that have prided in nurturing talent from the grassroots. And so that was a very good reward, that one of Wilson. And then the other example I want to mention is Michael Olunga. His solidarity payments to Kenyan clubs, although it was not directly from a Kenyan club, because he moved from a club in Japan to Hail in Qatar at a transfer of 800 million Kenyan shillings. The Kenyan clubs he applied this trade before got a solidarity payment, that is 5% of 800 million Kenyan shillings. That came to about 40 million shillings, and it was shared amongst the 4 or 5 clubs that he had gone through, including Tusker, including Gor Mahia, including I think Kariobangi Sharks also. So they shared this 5% solidarity payment. So that was also a key transfer for Kenya, involving a Kenyan player. Then the other player that I would like to talk about is Jakis Tuisange, who went to Petro Atletico from Angola, from Gor Mahia. And he was transferred at a fee of $1 million USD, coming to about 120 million Kenyan shillings to Gor Mahia Football Club. So actually that's the record, and it was a very good deal to Gor Mahia. They actually are doing very well even currently, because they know the sweetness of selling a player at a good rate. We can see now they are going all out to sign in very many players, especially the ones doing well at the ongoing CHAN tournament. So far they have already signed 6 new players, and I'm sure the Gor Mahia technical bench and the chairman of Gor Mahia is a business person. He's signing these players knowing very well that he's not going to stay with them for long, because his end game will be to sell them to more developed markets at good fees. So if you have about 6 players, you are selling at $1 million each, then Gor Mahia must be doing good business coming in future. And I think this should be a good advice to other Kenyan clubs to also take signing players seriously and scouting for good talent, and also look at the transfer market, especially when they nurture good players and sell them to other developed markets.
Yeah, that's very proper. Yeah. It's really good that even here in Kenya, Kenyan teams and Kenyan clubs are getting good money from talented players, selling them, and it's leading the clubs. Gor Mahia, even right now, Gor Mahia, what they're doing is I found it crazy. They're just selling players. One would think it's unfair, but it's just business at the end of the day. They're smart. I actually didn't know the end goal was selling them. I thought it was just for them to be in the team. But it's gonna sell them at a higher price. Of course, right now they've been seen in the CHAN tournament. Teams are looking at them from abroad, and you just start seeing them. They're going to Europe and stuff. So all those other guys, it's really good to see the kind of teams benefiting from it. These big transfers.
Yeah, it's an eye opener. I think other Kenyan clubs need to pursue. I think Kariobangi Sharks did very well. We have seen Gor Mahia doing very well. We expect other clubs in the Kenyan Premier League to look at the transfer business as a big revenue earner for them.
That's been an amazing discussion with Mr. Richard Ekhalie over here. We learned so much. So thank you so much for watching this 3rd episode of the SportsBiz Unwrapped podcast. very great podcast that we started. Continue subscribing already on 107. Let's hit 200 stars. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I also see you there. We're getting good plays. Soon we'll be in the charts of know. Keep the subscriptions, the love. You guys have been amazing. We'll keep on producing great quality content and giving you knowledge about what sports business is. Thank you so much. It's been your host, Javan O. See you in the next video.